Months at school, trouble peaked at high tides, and much down to you, summer seemed a lifetime, and the thrills and excitement, toys but our joys. At the end of the day, us boys will be boys. I'm talking back and draws a 3.5, not a 10 or a gram. I score for 3.5, and I'm cost you 120, 240 for quarter bars. Always coming back for more because you know the draws are large with not a care in the world. I used to stare at the girls, conjure up courage and go tell them hilarious tales. A ghost story so gory, I was scared myself. It was rare but it helped, chatting cool back in school. Having views, opinions, thoughts, visions, course we were excited. The portrait of your childhood, a time of ignorance and innocence. The best is it ain't finished yet.
Check. welcome to the second day of XBlockchain Summit 2018. You are with me, Cheryl Marala, and I'm going to be your MC for today. And of course, this event is made possible thanks to a collaboration from all the parties involved. The 2018 XBlockchain Summit is co-organized by PundiX and supported by Indonesian Blockchain Association. Also, a special thanks to our platinum sponsors, NIM, Binance, Poseidon, and Fexanium. And thanks to our bronze sponsor, BitZ. If you missed yesterday, don't worry, because we still have so many fantastic speakers for today, and a video of yesterday, of course. And we also have XBlockchain Awards and Party by the Beach this evening at 8 p.m. onwards. This is open for all participants, so I hope to see everybody tonight over there. And don't forget to download XBlock Summit app. Using your registered email and password is XBlockSummit. We are also encouraging you to follow our Twitter. It's XBlockSummit, and Facebook, XBlockchain Summit. So before we start today, we have a very special session this morning. I would like to invite you to see the highlights of XBlockchain Summit 2018 yesterday. How about that, ladies and gentlemen? I'm pretty sure today is going to be just as exciting. Now, without further ado, let's start day 2 off with our first session. Please give a warm welcome to Pit Huang, CTO and COO of PundiX. Also, Zach Chia, CEO of PundiX.
Hello everyone, a very good morning to everyone, and welcome again to day 2 of XBlockchain Summit. Yesterday, PundiX talked about Xpose and our delivery to the world, our Xpose devices, to allow people to be able to buy, sell, and use cryptocurrency. Today, we want to switch gears a little bit and talk about another project that PundiX has, which is FunctionX. We announced FunctionX a little over a month ago, and some of our friends are actually wondering, what is FunctionX? Yes, it is a blockchain, but it is also something much more than a blockchain. Before I go into the details of FunctionX, allow me to share a real-life story with everyone. you can see that on our left is actually our So you can see on the screen, on the left is actually the current situation of dApps today. Many of you here are developers, are crypto traders, and expert in blockchain industry. We all trade every day. However, the reality is that the most popular decentralized apps today, which is a decentralized exchange, has 1,000 daily active users. That is the state of the blockchain today. And if we move to the state of the mobile internet, the most popular apps on the mobile internet, Facebook, has over 1.5 billion daily active users. The difference is huge, and we wonder, why is this happening? There's many different reasons, and we believe the most simple reason of all is because the user experience and also the ability to use dApps hasn't really reached what we hope we want it to be today. With FunctionX, we hope to change all this. When we launched XPost, we wanted every single person to be able to buy, sell, and use crypto. And with FunctionX, we hope that the next million developer can come on board and develop for the blockchain. Allow me to introduce my co-founder and CTO, Pete Huang.
Yeah. Yeah. Yours.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Pete. I'm co-founder and CTO of PonyX. But today, I think, allow me use Chinese to do this demo. Thank you.
Thank you. So, like we said, FunctionX is a blockchain, but something more than a blockchain. Today, we want to show everyone what FunctionX can do. We will bring and create FunctionX and put it into an application that everyone uses every day. You use it every day. You use it many minutes and many hours every day. And that application comes in the form of a hardware. It is something that you use every day. Do you know what it is? So, allow Pete to show us what we have created using FunctionX.
Okay. That device in my pocket. Yeah. Is this one? iPhone.
We have heard many announcements about a blockchain mobile phone. Today, we bring you a working prototype of a blockchain mobile phone, X-Phone.
Yeah.
For the next 45 minutes, Pete will show us how to use the X-Phone, what are the features, and how can we really start using the X-Phone from this very moment.
Yeah, okay.
So, ladies and gentlemen, what is your idea of a blockchain phone? Is it a phone with a crypto wallet? Is it a phone with better security? Is it a phone which allows you to trade better? X-Phone has all these features, but we believe that a real blockchain phone means that everything that you do on the phone is part of the blockchain network. Every bit and byte.
Okay. Allow me use Chinese. Okay. 现在呢，我们的 X4 呢已经连接到了我们自己的一个局域网中。这局域网中呢有3个节点，这3个节点呢，提供了我们 X4 还包括 FunctionX 所有的功能。接下来所有的演示呢都不会使用到中心化的服务器，还包括电信运营商的业务。
Right. So one feature about FunctionX X-Phone is that it doesn't connect to the network as we know. It doesn't connect to the telco network. the screen that Pete showed just now is the first screen that you boot up X phone.
OK， 这里我们有3个节点，其中一个节点的屏幕，我展现给大家看。OK， 这里呢是我们的所有的上链的信息，还有包括这个节点的信息。这边是所有的节点的列表。这个是接下来所有的 demo 呢，我们都会给大家展示这部手机在怎么样在就是我们整个 Function X 的网络里面运行的，通过这个节点。
So, because it is connected to different nodes in the Function X, today we brought 3 nodes into the Function X network. What the X phone is doing is that it is booting up and connecting to the nodes, and when you connect to the nodes, the X phone belongs to part of the Function X network.
OK， 我们现在开始进行这部手机的激活操作。大家可以看到这个是欢迎画面。下一步呢，我们已经保存好了我们 Function X 的 WiFi 网络，所以呢，我们只需要连接它就可以了。
So let's connect to the Wi-Fi of Function X and start working.
等你下一步。现在 X Phone 开始搜索网络中的所有节点，大家可以看到，现在搜索成功了，然后有3个节点在这里，并且有节点名称、IP 地址，还有包括就是安全等级。
So after you connect to a regular Wi-Fi connection, it searches for the nodes in Function X. So we find that there are 3 nodes in the neighborhood, 3 Function X nodes called Satay, Nasi Goreng, and Soto Ayam. So at the side of all the 3 nodes, you have the trust level. The higher the trust level, the easier for X phone to connect to it. So let's connect to one of the nodes.
OK， 点击下一步，一些警告的语言咯，每个手机都有。
Right. So this is giving out the permission for your location.
点击下一步。这一步呢，其实跟每一个人在创建一个加密货币的钱包账号是一样的，我们需要有24个助记词去生成私钥。那么这一步呢，在 X Phone 里面也是一样 ，X Phone 呢通过助记词来恢复，还包括保存自己的数据在 Function X 的链上。
So every time when you boot up your X phone, you'll be given 24 recovery seed. So it's very similar to how you enable your cryptocurrency wallet each time. So let's remember the recovery seed. Someone can take a photo of it, and let's go to the next step.
OK， 已经记好了吗
？Yeah.
点击下一步，我们尝试一下。这一步开始，我们去尝试验证助记词。第3个助记词是。
So let's verify the recovery seed. Does anyone remember what is the 3rd recovery seed? Limit.
Yeah, limit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, next one, 4th.
What is the 4th recovery seed? Drastic.
Drastic. Yeah, right. Next 7.
What is the... Sorry? Which one is it? Gasp. Okay, gasp. The 4th one, yeah.
Gasp. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, 这一步是非常重要的一步。这一步呢是在X Phone 在整个 Function X 网络中创建一个节点名称，在 Function X 所有的设备呢，在网络中都有一个独一无二的节点名称。
So, every time you create an identity on the X Phone, it will be your identity forever. It will be how people identify you. So now we will create a node name for Pete's X phone.
OK， 我给我的手机取名字叫 Pete，P-I-T-T， Pete。这样。OK， 我的这部手机已经在 Function X 网络中已经成功激活了。OK， 大家可以听到有一个当的声音。
So as you can see, once you created your own identity on your X phone, you will be able to browse your information through our protocol called FXCP, which we will explain later.
OK.
You will also be able to do different kinds of things on the phone.
OK， 我们给大家看一下我们的节点信息上面，刚刚有一条就是注册信息已经同步在了我们自己的公链上，就是这部 X Phone。 但是这条信息是被加密的。
Yep. So because you have created an identity, you have parsed your identity to the network. So there will be a transaction, and the process that you have done will be recorded on the block 1100-956.
OK， 请大家注意，刚才我们并没有 P 的这个节点，现在这个 node 已经发现了 P 这个节点，在整个网络中。
So because Xphone is already registered to be part of the FunctionX network, PIT, the Xphone, is also part of the node network.
OK， 在成功页面呢，还有几个非常重要的信息，包括 FXTP、XXX PIT、message.pit and call.pit。子明可以给大家解释一下这是干什么用的吗？
好。So next time when you want to message your friend on the blockchain, you will write message.recipient. When you want to call your friend, you don't need your traditional telco number. You just type call.recipient.
还有 FXTP 这一条。
Yes, and next time when you want to browse the internet, whether it's your own data or other people's information, with your permission, only with your permission, you can actually access it through our FXTP protocol. It's somewhat similar to a decentralized HTTPS protocol. And the difference is that only you have control over the protocol because your data is sent to the decentralized network through consensus algorithm. So essentially, no one can control your data except for yourself.
OK， 整个注册和激活流程今天就已经完成了。Zach， 能不能给大家介绍一下 FunctionX 的整个运行的整个架构？
好。Right. So we said that FunctionX is a blockchain, but not just a blockchain. So FunctionX consists of 5 different elements. The first one is FunctionX operating system. FunctionX operating system is a modified version of Android 9.0. Hence, it will work on almost all ARM-supported architecture hardware, not just phone, but any smart devices. Second is FXTP, which we have said just now is actually a decentralized version of a HTTP protocol, which means that you can actually send data, you can browse the internet, everything that you do, that you used to do, are now on the decentralized network. Next, we have the FunctionX blockchain, which is an enhanced version of blockchain. We hear many stories of high throughput, high TPS blockchain. But why do we think that ours is a very high performance blockchain? It's simply because the answer to great performance blockchain is software and hardware. Many people have done a lot on the software side through sharding and plasma and etc. But if the hardware is the bottleneck, then you can only go as far. For example, Bitcoin has 7,000 nodes. We have already 5,500 expos deploying in the market. And we will have at least 100,000 expos by the year 2020. Just imagine, what if all these expos are actually nodes? Maybe we have found the answer to blockchain speed bottleneck. We have also IPFS, which is a decentralized file storage system, and we have FunctionX Docker, which is a runtime for application for developers on the blockchain.
OK， 我们可以进到这 Xphone 的桌面里面来。然后呢，桌面分为好几个部分。那么其中第一个默认的屏幕呢是区块链的模式，它这里面所有的应用呢，未来都只会是区块链的应用，去中心化的应用。
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the blockchain mode of Xphone. Anything that you do on this screen is decentralized and on the network.
右边的这个屏幕呢是传统的安卓应用屏幕，所以呢 Xphone 可以兼容所有的安卓程序，包括 Facebook、WhatsApp 等所有的应用，你不必需要就是放弃到它，只使用区块链应用。
And we can swipe seamlessly to the traditional mode, which is the mode that we are using every day. In essence, you can use blockchain application, dApps, and also traditional apps such as these on the same phone.
在最左边一屏呢，这个是消息列表，它包含了所有的区块链的消息，还包括传统的电信运营商的消息，还包括应用推送等等。顶部呢是整个区块的状态，可以告诉我们现在连接到的节点数量等其他信息。
On the furthest left, this is the message panel, and you will actually be able to read messages, whether it's from your traditional telco, SMSs, or blockchain SMS. They will both be on the message panel. And on the top panel is actually the nodes that the Xphone is connected to.
对，接下来我们会演示几个 demo 给大家。Like， 你能不能告诉大家这几个 demo 是什么？
Sure. So we will do a few demos. And what can a phone do? What is the basic function of a phone?
然后呢，这整个所有的系统，除了 FXTP 还包括所有东西呢，还有关键点就是 Function XNS 系统。然后呢，我们所有的demo 接下来都会依赖每一个节点的名称进行。
So just now we mentioned that you have created yourself a unique node name. So PIT is actually a unique identifier in the node name system, similar to the domain name system. We have PIT as a Xphone, but we can also have different hardware, different smart hardware to be part of the system. Every one of the hardware or phone will be identified through a unique node name system. So when I make a call, I will call PIT through call.pit. FXTP will allow you to transfer data from one hardware to another without being limited by the server-client process. What this means is that you can actually transfer your images, your text through the blockchain. And because it goes through the blockchain, no one can stop you unless you break the consensus model, which so far is impenetrable. You can also message. If I want to message in a traditional way, I will message a phone number. If I want to message on the blockchain way, I will message to the unique identifier. So I will message PIT, message.pit. And the basic function of making a call. You can actually key in call.the recipient to actually make the call. And the call will go through the blockchain decentralized network.
OK， 接下来我们先演示一下刚刚第一个画面展示中的，我们通过 FXTP 进行文件分享，还包括文件上传、下载等操作。首先呢，我们打开文件管理器。
So let's do a basic function today. Let's do a simple upload and download function.
OK， 右上角有一个上传按钮，点击之后呢，可以选择上传文件、图片或者是网站。
So we can upload files, images, a web page even.
OK， 我先拍张照片吧，点击 Upload Images。OK， 拍张照片。
Okay.
Take photo. Yeah. But wow.
Maybe take a photo of.
Too much light. Yeah. So
say hello.
Yeah.
This is the
hello.
first decentralized image that is transferred to the internet.
1, 2, 3. Yeah. Pick. But it's not high quality, so it's too much light in the wall. Okay. That photo. Yeah. I need rename the file name. Okay. Example fx.jpg. Continue. Yeah, it's uploading. Just wait a second.
So one important thing is that a lot of people would ask, so what happens to privacy? I mean, would my data be on the blockchain forever? This is actually a fallacy question because your data is already being used by the telco, the providers, even different organizations. But because Your data is stored and encrypted by only you. Only you can decrypt it, and only you can decide when to send it or whether to destroy it. So the upload is successful, and we have fx.jpg.
Yeah. Yeah. 这网速有点慢，所以它显示的比较慢。OK.
OK.
Yes, successful. 接下来呢，这张照片呢，我可以使用 FXTP 通过就是浏览器的方式去访问它，不仅仅通过这个 app。然后呢，我们打开浏览器。
So let's browse the image through the browser. So, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. That file name is fx.jpg。因为是通过我的 noname 上传的，所以我就应该打 Pete。Zach， 你可以翻译一下吗？
可以。Right. So this is a regular browser on the X phone. The beautiful thing is that you can actually browse the normal HTTP web and also the blockchain FXTP web. This is the blockchain FXTP web with an encryption. And we can also switch to the regular HTTP mode.
Yeah, can.
So this is a regular HTTP mode.
Yeah, just tap here. Yeah, HTTP model and FXTP model.
So for the FXTP mode, we're accessing fx.jpg by PID. So the final word is PID because we are searching for the node name system, the unique identifier on the network.
OK， 然后点击访问。OK.
Yeah, so here you go. The image has been uploaded through the X phone to the FunctionX network.
Yeah.
So just imagine, we have just built a simple decentralized app. And just imagine how limited the decentralized app supply is today in the market. And we have just built one to compete in the market.
OK， 我们接下来可以尝试一下发送短消息。
All right, now it's time to send a text message.
到
Send it to me or
OK， 或者你可以尝试一下向大家解释一下 HTTP 还包括 FXTP 的，你要跳过吗 ？OK。
Right. So the traditional HTTP protocol is actually a one-sided client-server-based network. So you essentially need the permission of the server to reach the destination. But with FXTP, you can actually send it through the consensus network, which means that your message will reach the destination regardless of who, or even there will be no way for people to stop you from sending your message.
Yeah， 我现在尝试发一条消息给 Zach， 你的手机在袋子里面。
哦。
可以吗？
可以。
OK。我点击这里创建一条新的消息，然后大家可以看到呢，这个和浏览器很像，现在是区块链模式，然后我们可以通过这个开关转换为普通的电信运营商模式，通过数字的输入，或者我转换回来可以用区块链加密模式。
Right. So just like the browser, even when you send text messages, you can switch between traditional telco model and also blockchain model.
Yeah. 我现在输入 Zach 的节点名称，然后，Hey bro, okay, yeah, I think it's successful. Oh no, no network. Sorry. Hey bro. Yeah.
Right. So
successful?
The first text messages has been sent through the decentralized network.
Yeah. Can you reply me?
I'll reply you, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Pin back. Yeah. 所有的这些操作呢，都是通过我们的整个节点3个节点进行的，所以大家可以看到这边有 sending message 的状态的消息在这里，所有的东西都在这里，都是上链的，包括Zack 的这部手机也是上链的。
Everything is on the chain. So everything that we have done just now is part of the block that we have harvested and recorded on the chain transaction.
OK。Zack， 你要不要解释一下整个工作流程到底是什么样子的
So because it's fully decentralized, when you send the message, it goes through the network. The node that we connected it to is Soto Ayam.
Yeah.
So it goes through Soto Ayam, and then it goes through Nasi Goreng, and then it goes to different nodes and reaches the destination. And because we have a consensus model, no one can destroy it because your message is already being recorded on the block.
Yeah. OK。接下来我们要不要尝试一下去中心化的电话
Okay, so we have just done a world's first sending of SMSs.
Yeah.
Now we will do the world's first call on the blockchain.
OK。OK。Sorry。Yeah。打开电话的应用，然后呢，这边有一个历史记录，还包括有一个拨号键盘。这个拨号键盘呢，其实是跟刚才所有产品都是一样的，它有2个模式，一个是传统的模式，还包括一个区块链模式。
So even when you make a call, you can make a call to the blockchain mode, which is called the recipient, and you can make a call through the traditional telco. So the X phone allows you to have a SIM card with your traditional telco.
OK， 我在这边输入 call Zack， 然后拨打电话。
Okay, so I'm going to receive the world's first blockchain phone.
你可以接起来吗
Hello?
Yeah, but no speaker. Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. 你要不要去找一个现场观众去
Okay. So, to prove it's real,
Yeah.
we want to choose a volunteer to receive the first call.
Yeah.
So, can I have
That has camera.
Pecco?
Yeah, that one.
Can we have Pecco to receive the call from Pit?
Yeah. Okay, call Pecco. 有吗 ？Pecco， 有收到吗？接听，OK。接听电话吗？要不然你可以用 Zack 那台，因为你比较远，有 WiFi 的问题。Yeah, I will make call to Zack X4.
Okay.
Are you received it? Hello? 喂 ，Hello Hello， 能听到吗？喂，能听到吗？我可以听到呀。你
Do you want to give it to the gentleman at your side?
Hi. Wow. Hello. Nice to meet you too. 你好。Yeah. OK. Hello. 泰国，你可以把麦放在那个听筒上吗？
Can we maybe one more? 你已经挂了是吧？
对，我挂了。
Okay. Okay.
你可以解释给大家听吗？就是我要不要再打一个给你，然后你试一下跟其他人
Yeah, sure.
尝试一下。OK。Yeah。我再打给你，可以跟其他人说话。
Okay, so there's another demo. Can we have this gentleman to try over here?
喂。Hey, hello. Yeah, I'm Pete.
Loud and clear, right?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think I think it made them too. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So, this is a call from blockchain. Yeah, the first I think.
So you can have a SIM card in the phone to call your Telkomsel or AT&T, but you can also use a blockchain call, whichever you like, whichever is cheaper and whichever is safer.
Yeah.
So, as always, one more thing. We talk about how we want to bring the next million of developers to the community. Xpost is about bringing the next billion of people to be able to use cryptocurrency. And FunctionX is to bring the next million of developers to develop for dApps. What easier way to do this than to bring the current crop of developer on Android? We have hundreds of thousands of apps on Android. In fact, millions. We have millions of web pages. These are the people that we want to utilize. These are the people that we want to rally to develop for the blockchain, to develop dApps. So next, I want to bring you Wesley, our developer, to show you how easy it is to develop dApps on FunctionX.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, you can zoom in. Okay. Yeah. 这个工具呢，大家可以翻译给大家听。这个工具呢是 FunctionX 的命令行工具，它用来在节点上创建服务，并且上传项目。
So this is a regular command line prompt built by PundiX. You can use it to upload, download source code and do everything that a developer knows how to do.
对，现在我们使用这个命令行工具呢，创建一个 Node 服务。
So now, through the command line prompt, we will create a service and we will send it to the node.
现在开始 ，Hello， 现在创建了一个服务之后呢，我们需要给这个服务中添加一些接口，比如说上传、下载图片，还包括文本接口。现在正在创建这些接口。
So, essentially, if you look at this, these are all normal JavaScript code, normal Java code. What we want to do is that we want to make it so simple that you can take whatever you already have, the Java code that you package for your APK, and just make some very minor changes, and then upload the file to any FunctionX node.
OK， 我们现在开始把刚刚编辑好的代码上传到节点里面去，通过我们的工具。OK， 已经上传成功了，把刚才代码。
So because we uploaded to the node, we also have a unique name and also a unique destination to visit.
OK， 然后最重要的是，大家要看一下，就这个服务接口的地址呢是 fxtp 2个斜杠，然后 service 点 fx 点 Wesley。
Right. Let's just visit fxtp/service.fx.wesley.
OK， 然后现在进行我们现在创建一个安卓项目。这个是安卓的 Android Studio 的项目，然后呢，这个项目里面最关键的是呢，在这里我们集成了 FunctionX 的 SDK。
So this is a regular Android Studio, and we have included FunctionX SDK into the Android Studio.
对，这个 SDK 里面提供了 FXTP 的通信协议，还有包括一切调用就是节点，还包括 FunctionX 网络中的 API。
This file has the FXTP transmission protocol and also the API that we expose so that developer can use the API to develop different things.
然后只需要简单的将SDK 植入之后呢，然后将你的服务地址，将服务地址填到配置文件里面，比如刚刚那个地址是 fxtp/service 点 fx 点 Wesley。
So just include the SDK file into your Android environment, and change the URL. Your previous URL is a HTTP protocol, and now you just need to change one line of code, which is just change it to FXTP protocol.
OK， 我们尝试把这个程序打包，并且上传到我们的节点里面。
So let's build the file, and then we have a APK file, which will be able to connect to the function X network.
OK， 我们刚刚把这个包重新命名为了 function X， 然后呢，把这个 APK 通过命令行工具上传到我们节点中去。
Right now, uploading the APK file to the nodes.
OK, wait a second. Yeah, you can see it uploading. So the Wi-Fi network is slower. Okay, wait.
This is the traditional model of development, which is you have an APK file and you download your PHP and your database, your backend, through the server. This is the new way of development. You develop as you normally do, and you upload everything that you have to function X. So behind the scene, you actually have uploading to the public chain supported by IPFS and FX Docker. IPFS is essentially a decentralized file storage system, which means that you don't necessarily, or you don't need to at all, to upload it to a centralized cloud hosting. You can use IPFS to upload it to anywhere. A node in Italy might be hosting a file that is from Singapore. And using the F Docker, which is a decentralized runtime, you will also be able to store your runtime in the nodes.
我们重试一下上传，因为刚刚网络是有点卡，这边现在因为太多 WiFi 干扰，在这里。
没问题。Yeah.
你可以跟大家解释一下。
So let's just wait for the reboot because of the Wi-Fi. And as we said, the blockchain is part of the 5 elements, and the rest are IPFS, which is a decentralized file storage system. We have the FX Docker, which is a runtime. So when you develop your application, where do you store it? You don't need to store it in your own local server. In fact, you don't need to store it in some cloud service provider. You just need to upload it into IPFS and also Docker, and your file is actually stored anywhere and everywhere in the world. You will be able to encrypt it, and only when the people want to receive it, they will be able to decrypt it using your public key.
我们重新上传，因为网络内源卡，因为干扰挺多的啊。OK， 上传成功了已经，上传成功了。OK， 接下来呢，我们尝试用手机去下载刚才上传的这个应用，名字叫 Function X，right？
Okay, so we have uploaded a APK file successfully to the Function X network. Now we will use a browser to access that APK file.
地址是多少？download， download。这个要解释一下，因为是 Wesley 创建的项目，所以呢，我们必须从他的地址去获取服务，包括 APK。
So everything that you upload through your node has a unique identifier, which is your own node name. So because Wesley uploaded it, so when you access it, the FXTP route has to end with Wesley as the unique name identifier.
OK，大家可以看到，就是这个function x，到 APK， 这个就是刚才我们创建的应用，先点下载 ，starting download。Yeah, slowly. 网络是有点慢，现在。网络是有点慢。
哦。
OK。
OK。
Install this APK. Open. Confirm. OK， 这个应用呢是一个非常简单的一个上传图片，包括上传文字，并且下载下来的一个这样的一个应用形态吧。上面有一个 Publish 按钮，我点击它可以上传照片。
So what Wesley has built is actually a very simple version of, if I may, Instagram on the decentralized network.
OK，
So
点击。我可以拍张照片给你吗？
可以啊。
Yeah. Yeah. OK.
OK.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool guy. Yeah. Continue. Uploading. 这个上传呢，这个上传还包括下载，现在都是通过 FFTP 进行的。但大家注意的是，我们在创建项目、上传项目和我下载项目的时候呢，整个过程全部都是去中心化的。也就是这个应用呢，和包括这个服务器端将永远存在在 Function X 网络中，包括你的内容。
So I don't know if we have fully understood everything, which is that everything we have done so far, whether it's uploading the APK file, downloading the APK file, sending the APK file, and receiving the APK file, everything is done on the decentralized network.
OK。OK， 我们还可以通过浏览器呢去访问这个资源，但是我们现在需要创建一个页面，我们之前已经创建好的页面，我们去访问这个资源，打开浏览器。
So we hope that with the introduction of Function X, more developer can actually hop on board to develop more dApps, because essentially what we know today is that there's too few dApps and there's very few real-life use cases. For example, the app that we just created just now could have been the first social network app on the decentralized network. Maybe, I'm not sure, but it could have been.
OK， 我输入了之前做好的一个网页去读取刚刚的内容，也就是说不管是安卓开发者还是网站开发者，他都可以使用这套系统去达到完全去中心化。
Yeah. This now was the APK file for Android developer, and this is for a web developer. So your website can also be decentralized in a few minutes.
对，网站的那个网站去中心化呢，现在开始演示。我们之前尝试呢，就尝试将所有的网站怎么样去能够快速的去中心化。那么我们找到的一个方案其实非常简单。我们现在就以谷歌的网站为例，那么这个是 Google.com 的首页。
Right, so we are borrowing Google's front page just for demo purposes. So today what we are doing is that we are bringing Google front page and decentralizing it.
你给大家看一下这个代码，这个代码全部都是Google 标准的首页代码，所有人都可以在 Google.com 可以抓取得到。
So if you view source on Google.com, this is what you have.
OK， 我们尝试上传 Google.com 的网页。这个现在上传也是通过我们的 Function X 的工具命令行工具上传。OK, uploading Google.html.
Yep, so Google, welcome to decentralized world.
Yeah, network slow. Yeah, success. So, 我们刚刚已经上传成功了 Google.com， 然后现在打开浏览器去访问它，是一个去中心化的网页。这边你可以解释给大家听。我们输入 Google 点 HTML 点，因为是 Wesley 上传的，所以要输入他的名字 Wesley。这边。OK。所以我们用的全部都是 FXTP Google.html.wesley 这样的东西。OK。
Yeah, correct.
这边可以解释一下吗？
Yeah. So we want to make it like so simple that anyone that already have development experience can actually upload everything on the decentralized network. It is so easy, so simple. It is different from what we understand about blockchain and decentralized app. It is something that everyone can start immediately. Every developer can today go home and launch everything that they have, whether it's an APK file, whether it's a HTML file, and instantaneously put them on the decentralized world.
OK， 那所有 demo 到现在结束了。OK，demo 结束了。Yeah, done. 你可以说一下那个。
So, what we have done so far are working proof of concept. The phone works, and we will be developing FunctionX more and more to stabilize it, to make sure that it is product ready, shipment ready. And when FunctionX is ready, you will not only see Xphone, you will see many, many different smart hardware built by PundiX, but more importantly, built by other developers and other hardware manufacturers. Our vision is to create a FunctionX blockchain and ecosystem that any hardware developer, wherever in the world, can use ARM architecture hardware to develop hardware that are blockchain, decentralized, enabled. We also want developers from all over the world to instantaneously be able to upload just by changing a line of code so that the APK file that you have or the website you have can be uploaded into the decentralized network. Because, trust me, and you know, what you developed so far is way better than all the dApps that you see today on the blockchain. We believe that 20 years ago, it was the year of the desktop internet. 10 years ago, it was the time of mobile internet. And we believe that the future is the blockchain internet. Yeah. Moving forward, in Q1 and Q2 next year, we'll be announcing a lot of implementation of FunctionX. And if you want to check out more about FunctionX, go to functionx.io. The information will be available 5 days from now, all the questions that you have, and when you will be able to see FunctionX available. Very likely Q2 next year, because PundiX believes that what we promise, we want to deliver. So when we say we will deliver, we will make sure FunctionX, Xphone, and more hardware will come into fruition in 2019, and we will truly experience the real power of decentralized application and hardware.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I'm the only one here, and I will cover you until you go. 'Cause if I told the truth, I would always be free and keep a rise with me until you go. Come in misery where you can see as old as you.
That was a really amazing demonstration. But what about the skeptic? Next up, we have a panel discussion about pushing past the skeptics. So please welcome to the stage our moderator, Stephen Suhadi, Chairman Asosiasi Blockchain Indonesia, And our speakers, Paul Sin, PhD, partner, Deloitte China and Deloitte's Asia Pacific Blockchain Lab. Simon Stephen, co-founder of Mogu, and Julian Gorman, Vice President, GSMA.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So, welcome, gentlemen. I'm here today to moderate a panel called Pushing Past the Skeptics, Charting Blockchain Adoption in APAC. But before we start, do you guys maybe want to just introduce yourself really quickly?
My name is Julian Gorman. I'm the Vice President for GSMA in Asia Pacific. GSMA is the Global Trade Association for Mobile Network Operators, representing about 800 mobile operators around the world, about 250 associate members, people like Google and Facebook. Our ambition or our mission is to grow the mobile telecoms industry, its prosperity and its impact, and deliver sustainable and sustained growth for the industry and for the world in general, and the benefit on the people.
Hey everyone, thank you for having me on the panel today. My name is Simon Stephen. I'm co-founder of Charter Group. We're in financial services, aviation, esports, and the reason I'm speaking today is representing Mogu, which is a smart router company that's changing the client-server model.
Morning, everyone. I'm Paul. I run the FinTech practice and also Asia Pacific Blockchain Lab for Deloitte. Our major projects are mostly permission blockchains, running it for the governments, monetary authorities, and also corporates.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. I'll start with the first question, and it's around skepticism. So some say that DLT technology is overhyped. Why do you think that some may feel this way, and what are your views?
So I'd imagine everyone in this room doesn't think it's overhyped. But if I talk about, say, the telecoms industry, across the industry, actually there's a lot of mobile operators looking at blockchain, see where they can use blockchain, DLT. I mean, telecoms by nature has a lot of use cases which people are talking about using blockchain for. I mean, we already manage identity. We already have massive distributed settlements. We're always exchanging vast amounts of information about people and data and transactions. We transfer money across borders. We do all the things that blockchain, cryptocurrency and DLT has been talked about being used for, telcos largely do. The issue is, across the telecoms industry, you have a number of leaders, people like China, Korea and Japan, who are very much exploring this and trying to get people in alliances and trying POCs. But then you get places like Southeast Asia. The telecoms industry in Southeast Asia are more fast followers, or actually even second wave followers. In places like Singapore are fast followers, Australia. But if you look at a place like Myanmar or Cambodia, I mean, they don't buy something until it's been proven, well and truly proven somewhere else in the world. And in the telecoms industry, we're still talking about POCs. We're still trying to get people in the room to talk about the things that can happen. And so it is, it's not at a point where it's getting mass adoption, but across the industry, across the world, there is a lot of telecoms looking to drive efficiencies with blockchain and even explore new business opportunities for telecoms using blockchain.
Simon?
Yeah, no, good point. I think hype is really driven by curiosity. And even for search terms, I had a look this morning. Blockchain peaked last year, 2017, December, in terms of Google search terms. But the most interesting thing I saw was always coupled with Bitcoin. So hype has been driven, in my opinion, by a lack of education. I was speaking to a minister in Malaysia for one of the projects we're setting up, and he's like, "Oh, you guys are in blockchain. That's like Bitcoin, right?" And I said, "Well, you know, my mother is a woman, but not every woman is my mother. They're not two in the same, right?" So I had to try, and it really does come down to that education standpoint. Looking at Gartner, they have a hype cycle they bring out every year for all emerging technologies, and they still position consistently blockchain at 5 to 10 years before it's really got the full use case out. So perhaps there was a peak in hype, but I really think, you know, everyone here can agree with the fact that we haven't really got there yet. But there is a lot of exciting promise. There's a lot of applications, like Julian said, and we're just sort of scraping the surface.
Yep, I agree with Simon. So when we talk about crypto asset and all that, and the decentralization of all the central banks and all the exchanges, I think it may be a hype. But if we are using the blockchain, especially permission blockchains in corporate applications, I think it's getting more and more real. In fact, last year is a proof of concept year, in our opinion. There are a lot of corporates experimenting with the blockchain for real business problem solving. This year is already a production year, so we see a lot of trade finance platform in production. We see V.Trade, Project Voltron, we see Hong Kong MA's trade finance platform. They have already conducted real transactions. We have bank assurance platform in production. We have loyalty programs in China. We have traceability network all over the world. So these kind of blockchain applications is no longer a hype. It's already a strategic weapon. So people are already using that to differentiate their services.
I'd just like to add, I mean, the telecoms industry is full of hype. In about 2001, 2002, telecoms industry came out and said you could search the internet on your phone. You know, remember the Nokia slider? I mean, anyone had that. I mean, it was not the internet. And actually, most people you ask now, when could you start to use your internet on your mobile phone? It was 2 or 3 years ago. I mean, telecoms industry is terrible at saying it's all here and now. I mean, we're all hyped about 5G. Actually, you're not really going to start using 5G in Indonesia for another couple of years. And we even forecast that by 2025, only 5% of the connections in Indonesia will be using 5G. But there's a heap of hype about 5G now. So we're terrible at it. So if you're a blockchain person and feeling a little concerned that you're a bit hyped up, I mean, our industry's full of it. It takes time, and you need to build to scale, and you need to find those use cases which people understand, and it's easy to adopt.
Oh, thank you. I guess that leads me to my next question around the trends. So what kind of trends are you seeing in APAC? I might start with you, Paul. And specifically, what roles do you think things like cryptocurrencies, ICOs, and like security tokens play in the role of trends and adoption of blockchain?
I think all this like high valuation of Bitcoins and ICO and all that is helping to arouse the interest in the market. I receive a lot of requests from chairmen, CEOs they say they need to do a blockchain project without knowing what is blockchain or what kind of problem they are solving. So it's more like a solution looking for problems at that time. Now I think the market is getting more educated, and they start to understand what or where they can use it compared to traditional technology. So most of my clients, because they're enterprises, they are moving away from public blockchains and crypto assets, especially because China is banning all these operations. So we are now using, when I say permission blockchain, it's like a Hyperledger called that kind of network. So they are adopting those technology. We define blockchain in corporate world as B2B data synchronization. So we are no longer talking about decentralizing stuff, these intermediaries and all that kind of models.
Yeah, no, I think we were talking about this actually just backstage before, how it's actually starting to take shape because the dust is settling. So there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of investment, people were doing ICOs for all sorts of crazy things, right? And now the dust is settling and we're seeing some stability and a separation away from blockchain just being crypto or blockchain just being ICOs. What is the technology good for? What can you do with immutability? What can you do with total transparency and trust? And how do you implement that? I think IBM came out yesterday and said their trust food system is ready. And Walmart said they're going to take it up for adoption. So that's a massive step when you look at the truest sense of farm to table. And I mean, everybody here has to eat, right? So that sense of trust now around when I go shopping at the supermarket, that's a huge impact. And you can't really see that previously. There was no way to track that previously. And that's just one application of blockchain. So the trends that we're seeing, I think, is now how can it actually get used? What are the actual use cases? So if there was 100% of projects getting funded last year, now in a bear market, things are actually getting further scrutinized, increased due diligence, and real use cases are getting put forward and adopted.
I mean, the great thing about I suppose the gold rush of last year is it grew awareness of everybody that blockchain is here, or there is blockchain, there is cryptocurrency. We did a survey in the industry, and awareness of blockchain and cryptocurrency is outrageously high. I mean, 95+%. But understanding of what it is, more than 55% of people said they didn't have any idea what it was, which is actually their key barrier for moving forward with even a trial. In saying that, some of the operators are already doing roaming settlement by blockchain. There's a few trials running on. And I mean, the impact that consumers will see is faster settlement, faster access and understanding and ease of roaming, just by the fact that settlement will happen quicker in the background. I mean, settlement now can take weeks or days for postpaid customers. And so this is live act connection around the world, having your identity available around the world on telecoms. So they are on the cusp. People will start to see them soon, but it will be away from the cryptocurrency ICO that I think people will start to enjoy and feel that actually they can trust blockchain and the things that are associated with blockchain. But I mean, it does come back to the high awareness was built by last year.
Yeah, I think you guys are absolutely right. What happened last year did arouse the market and increase the awareness, so that was really positive. Just diving deeper a little bit, I might start with Simon this time. What do you think? What are specific industries do you think are really spearheading the adoption for blockchain, and how fast are those industries moving?
From where I'm standing, like I said earlier, we have an over-the-counter derivatives broker running out of Australia, and that's really a market where it's been so many steps to get to liquidity, and we were talking about this earlier before. You had to deal with 8 or 9 counterparties to get a price. But we've seen the financial markets move forward with blockchain, putting entire teams on, Goldman, Deutsche, all the big boys now are putting the teams on to really investigate the use cases. So I've seen the fastest moving areas really be the financial markets. And that's where a lot of applications come, because it is a lot of peer-to-peer. It is a lot of counterparty transactions. And if you can make an environment where you've got eliminating pre-credit checks, you're eliminating all these things that have been built up over the last, 4 or 5 decades, and now you're saying there's a better way, a faster way, and a more efficient way. That's where adoption comes in. I also think these companies now in the bull market of the stock market, right? It's really overinflated, big balance sheets. They're not really too heavily investigating, but as that comes back, if there is a correction, they're forced to adopt practices to keep the same profitability. So if you offer a blockchain solution that reduces their OPEX, now that's very interesting for them, especially when you're looking at a bear market. That's where I've seen it have a massive impact. Even McKinsey came out and said in the over-counter derivatives market over the next 5 years it'll be $8 to $9 billion of impact on OPEX. So that's huge if you look at it across the board.
Well, yeah. I will put financial services as number one, government, and then supply chain. The nature of financial institutes is to price risk. And in the past, there are a lot of risks that are coming out of fraudulent documents, fraudulent transactions, identity theft, etc. Blockchain is very good in eliminating that. So they are the first guys who realize the real value of using blockchain. And because of that, trade finance is usually the top use case in all the blockchain adoption. And then they find out that in order to make that work, they need a consortium or they need an ecosystem to work with each other. So if you want to detect duplicate financing, you need all the banks to be on the network. And no bank is going to trust another. So the government step in. There are a lot of trade finance platforms, like Hong Kong MA is driving the Hong Kong one, PBOC is driving the Shenzhen one, and MAS building a national trade platform. So all these governments are stepping in order to facilitate the development of an ecosystem platform. So governments start to realize the value also, and with these kind of risks eliminated, the liquidity for SME will increase. The SME contribute more than 60 to 70% of our Asia economy. So if they got liquidity, the whole economy benefits. And because of that, supply chain need to get in. All the payment and all the financing are triggered by bill of ladings, by shipping documents. If they do not digitize a document, the banks cannot work with among themselves. So logistic companies are forming their alliances, and you probably heard like Maersk and Costco, OCL, they are all forming their own blockchain network so that they can digitize the document and then send it over to trade finance network and also insurance network. So these guys are the first adopter in my observation.
I'd love to say telecoms, but it's not true. Telecoms is but to be honest, I think, banks also are usually not the fastest adopters of technology. So, banks deserve some credit for being at the front of this. In the telecoms industry as a general is not at the front of this, but we do have some pioneers. People like SoftBank who are leading some blockchain work. We've got a number of operators like Deutsche and KT who are involved with the Ethereum Alliance. So there's some isolated leadership, but as an industry, there's a lot of waiting and seeing. At the GSMA, we're trying to put things together. Trying to put 25 people in a room and agree on blockchain is not an easy thing, unless you're at a conference like this. But yeah, from our side, the obvious people who we're engaging in the ecosystem are the financial services people and banking and the things that have come up as the early use cases, I suppose.
Cool, thank you. I guess I had another question based off the previous presentation, which is quite amazing, I guess. We're seeing obviously the rise of dApps, right? Do you think, what types of dApps do you think will emerge as spearheading adoption?
Oh yeah, I'll take this one. Look, I think the rise of dApps has to be coupled, as they said, with the rise of nodes and supporting infrastructure. So one of the biggest problems we've had with blockchain is how do you get past that early adopters stage of just the 20%? How do you get it scalable? And it always has been that, okay, this is a great technology, but no one's downloading the app or no one's actually allowing someone to use the extra processing power in their phone or computer. So blockchain hasn't had that mass scalability. But if you produce actual hardware like they've done, and then you run those hardwares like an individual node, it's very similar to what we're doing with Mogu, where we run the smart routers as a node in every household, right? We've already got 5,000 online, so that could be 5,000 nodes in someone's blockchain. So if your question is pertaining, if I'm understanding it correctly, to, okay, what does this actually mean for the blockchain community? Is that what you're asking at?
Yeah, more specific, like what kind of use cases do you think would be most conducive to dApps early on?
I think anything around data and the privacy of data. That's one of the key things I took away from their phones. So I often say that if you don't pay for the service, you are the product. Look at what Google knows on you, Facebook, right? You're not paying for these things, so you are the product. WhatsApp, Telegram, right? So they're saying, okay, here's a model that's centric to protecting your data and privacy. So DApps should focus around, if I choose to release my data, how can I monetize that? Because data is a continually valued asset now. Big data is making massive moves for society as a whole, technology as a whole. So if you have an ecosystem around valuing that data and you have control and transparency over how your data is monetized, massive.
I mean, we at GSMA, we're doing a lot of work around identity things, and I mean, there's a big debate over who owns the data. I think in the general consumer's mind, ownership is I either give it or I don't participate. There's no, they don't have a control function. And obviously, part of that is the ability to have an easy to understand control function about how they can evolve. And you know, I mean, in Indonesia, it's only 10 years ago, people used to put their, you know, their BlackBerry pins on the internet and say, please call me. So it varies across the world as the awareness of data and the value of data. I think that is growing. And as it grows, then people will start to search out, which will create demand. Generally, across the telecom industry at the moment, I think there's not enough demand for it to actually to create enough supply to bring up the awareness. But it is a key issue around identity and managing it, and I think that will be one of the first things.
I think one of the key value, I want to pick up on the point of the data point. One of the key value when we started adopting blockchain in enterprise is the ability to transfer sensitive customer information, individual information across border and companies and industries. Because in the past, this is against a lot of privacy laws and ordinance and also some countries, they have national security concerns. So it's very difficult to hold data offshore. Now with blockchain, we managed to get regulators' blessing on doing that kind of synchronization that eliminate a lot of paperwork and manual efforts. But there are one more important use case emerging from all the existing blockchains is the creation of a real big data pool. Because in the past, when we talk about big data for machine learning, for AI, we are talking about the data sitting in your ERP system or your core banking system, and plus some subscribed data like Bloomberg or Reuters and that kind of data. Now you have the ecosystem data. Let's say if I'm doing corporate banking, I have logistic company, I have corporates, I have insurance companies. I now suddenly have all the big data that are most relevant to my predictive analytics. And now people are trying to add value to the data amassed on blockchain. I do not need to know the identity of the people who are transacting, but I got the data to train up the neural network. So now I suddenly can predict like liquidity gap months before that happens. And that allows people to react to hedge and also to sell their financial contracts. So now this is becoming a gold mine, and we are seeing technology convergence among different kind of fintechs.
Yeah, just following on from your point there, you were talking about data previously being held in silos, so each company kept its data separate. Yep. What this could enable is a big data lake, or as you were saying. So a big data lake then provides access to relevant, accurate, and timely data, which is the hardest thing to get as a big data analytics firm or an AI firm. And if you have an access point to that where people have consented and they're rewarded, it's totally incentivized. So that can actually revolutionize everything from supply chain management, logistics, all of these things that we're not really considering a greater impact for now. It can really have a huge impact.
The one point I'd pick up too is the regulation. I mean, one of our big efforts at the moment in advocacy and policy is around cross-border data regulation, like permit the transfer of data in trusted environments. And I mean, there's a lot of countries in Asia who are heading down the road of keeping it onshore. Not only does it block things, a lot of these types of innovative services, it actually increased the cost even for the service if they don't use blockchain. And certainly a key priority for us is trying to encourage governments and policymakers to understand that actually in a global digital economy, and because every digital economy is at some point dependent on global, is data needs to be able to flow across borders. And it's a key element to allow this sort of service to happen.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. There's a lot of data sovereignty rules floating about. And we see, like with solutions around blockchain and decentralization, the immutability, it's almost inevitable that those data sovereignty rules will be broken through blockchain or breached. just on that, maybe for Julian, what other challenges do you see specifically around APAC for the adoption of blockchain and blockchain applications? And why do you think some countries might operate at a faster pace than others?
So I'll limit my comments to telecoms. I won't pretend to talk for banking. Across Asia Pacific, if I look for Pacific all the way to Pakistan, not including China. In my region, you find the Koreans and the Japanese are at the far end, the front end of this type of thing. But most of the region, actually, APAC is characterized in telecoms by being followers. So even at a 5G place, I mean, you've got some 5G networks popping up around the world. The other countries are waiting for a vendor to be able to turn up and provide a box that is complies with the standards. They just plug it in, turn it on, it goes. In blockchain, we're still at trials, POCs, trying to figure out the commercial model, trying to make sure the whole ecosystem's together. So generally across APAC, the problem with the telecoms is we have a lack of people who are exploring, innovating, and at the front end. A lot of people watching. It's a bit different in Europe and America, where I expect the first real mass market services to probably come up that consumers will see and feel. It's largely a cultural and industry paradigm at the moment, I think, for telecoms, is what's going to stop it really taking off in APAC.
Yeah, okay. From where I'm standing, I think, your question about what's going to stop countries moving into this and why have some gone faster than others, I think it just comes down to, I played a lot of rugby in Australia. We were talking about that yesterday, right? The big fellas in the front row, it's a lot harder for them to turn when they get a lot of momentum, as is the smaller players. So a country like Singapore is able to move and pivot and adapt, and that's always been part of their appeal. They created their own financial markets, their own regulatory environment that promoted business. And they're doing that now. They're not sitting on the fence. You see a lot of regulators, they're sort of 1 foot in the door, or they're halfway there when it comes to blockchain. But Singapore said, here's our regulation, this is where we stand, it's very clear. Same with Hong Kong, they're starting to come out with that. Australia, to its credit, is doing the same. There's sandbox, there's testing, all this sort of stuff where they're letting businesses actually explore the industry. So that will be the ultimate catalyst or the ultimate inhibitor of blockchain. It's going to come down to regulation, and that's always been the case for most progressive technologies that have a greater impact, particularly when it comes to finance, KYC, all these sorts of things that have been traditionally regulated very highly, and you provide now a solution that differs from that but actually enhances it for efficacy, then it becomes a very interesting use case when the regulator starts promoting that and supporting that. So I think if you look at the countries overall, it'll be the ones that are first to regulation that promote the adoption faster.
I think blockchain is like many other new technologies. The reason why some country will adopt it faster always because of the availability of people, capital, and regulation of friendly regulators, and also sometimes whether the environment need that kind of solutions. So like in China, they need blockchain because China is very diverse, very dispersed in terms of geographics and all that. So if you do not have that kind of distributed ledger, it's very hard to synchronize data across the whole country. Whereas you can see like Singapore, when they build KYC, they build it on utility. They do not create KYC blockchain because it's very easy for them to build a centralized database for all the digital identity. So that created the context for adoption. And after that, you need talents. You need people who program blockchain, not talk about blockchain, right? So then, like China, there are a lot of engineers, and it's almost abundant. So it's easier for them to create that kind of solutions. In terms of capital, it depends on whether we are talking about public blockchains or permission ones. So if it's public blockchain, then abundance of VC will help. That's why you see a lot of Singapore startups working on public blockchains because they have a lot of VC interested in that area. In China, it used to be very, very not busy or noisy. I don't know how to put that, but and also because there are a lot of VC. So now it's banned. So the last one is a regulation. If the regulator ban this, then of course it will shut down a lot of public blockchain activities. But the regulators are getting more and more educated in the region. So most regulators can converse in a blockchain literate way. At least they are not going to associate all kinds of blockchain projects with money laundering and all that kind of like drug trafficking and all that stuff. So I think at the moment, everyone is still in very early stage. So if a country is trying to speed up and catch up, it should not be very difficult.
Yeah, sorry, mate. Just to preface that conversation, Paul's been very modest. He's leading the talks with the government in China on blockchain and working very closely with them and spending a lot of his time. So I think that's actually worth a round of applause because that's an incredible feat to be getting China to adopt blockchain.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess.
I was just going to add one comment. I think I referred to before is in some cases blockchain's a solution looking for a problem to solve. And I think certainly in a lot of industries and certainly in the telecoms industry, a lot of the things that have been looked at the moment are to replace an existing use case. And when, I'll give you an example. So we all now use WhatsApp. The telecoms industry actually, the mobile operators in 2003 came up with an idea called RCS, Rich Communication Services. It's basically WhatsApp. From 2003 to 2013, the idea of getting 800 operators together to launch it and do something was unachievable. But now there's WhatsApp. Actually, Google has bought effectively RCS standard. And now every Android phone that comes out of the box has this functionality in it. And so getting the ecosystem together or getting a lot of players together, which is often part of the blockchain thing, as opposed to Singapore, who can afford to build a monolithic identity rather than distributed. I mean, RCS was effectively distributed WhatsApp, but it was impossible to get an industry to collaborate and work on a single model. And I think that's the biggest challenge is that there'll be new use cases which will be more obvious. But in replacing existing use cases, you're looking for a substantial benefit, and you're looking for a lot of people to agree on that benefit to make it move, and that can take a lot longer.
Just, I guess, a quick follow-up question specifically for Paul. There's that term that East follows West. Do you think that with blockchain, specifically for blockchain adoption, because we're seeing, for example, a lot of the new blockchains that are coming out are actually driven out of Asia. Do you think that paradigm is shifting a little bit and sort of we're seeing West follows East?
So it sounds like a very sensitive question. So I think for blockchain to work effectively, we actually need interoperability. There is a tendency for Asian to create blockchain variants, which is proprietary, and which could be faster or more secure or have some special features, but that is not how we win in this market. We should adopt a more standardized distributed ledger so that people can exchange value and exchange data with each other. And in that regard, I don't believe someone should be better than the other or who is following who, because if we can all contribute our solutions I'm a big advocate for open source. So I always urge my client, even after they ask us to build something very, very interesting, I will always ask them to contribute. So if they can contribute to Linux Foundation, Hyperledger Alliance, Deloitte is also part of Hyperledger Alliance, EEA, etc. So if those can be contributed, then we have a higher chance to have interoperability in the ecosystem. At the end of the day, we do not do trade within Asia. We do trade across the world. So if the documents and the data standard, API standard, and the consensus mechanism are all different, it's very difficult for us to make this work.
Just my final question, start off with Julian. What do you think this industry is going to look like in about 3 years from now, and what are some of the catalyst points for us to get there?
I think in 3 years now, the people in the audience will be different. Or certainly maybe these people are in the audience, but there'll be 500 other people who would not involve now. Like the adoption, the use cases, the penetration into average society will be completely different. But a lot of that they'll be unaware of. So people will be using blockchain, but they don't know they're using blockchain. It'll just become the technology that industry runs on because it's more efficient, it's faster, it's more secure. And so I think that will be the biggest difference. And rather than talking about what's coming or what could come, there'll be a lot of more talk of this is what's happened and this is how it's been most successful. And getting back to the point of East versus West, I remember I've seen a chart somewhere a long way away, a long time ago, that says 500 or 600 years ago, the geographic center of the world's economy was somewhere over near China. And then in the intermediate time, it went to Europe, America, and then now it's almost back to China now. Certainly from the telecoms industry, from the people who use it, the people on their phone, the people who are interacting with the device. People in the East use their phone a lot more, they're online more, they're willing to try more. It's a younger, faster adopting consumer. And I would not be surprised that the bigger use cases or the bigger examples actually appear in the East.
Yeah, I'd have to actually agree with what you just said. When it'll be around, but you won't even know you're using it. Businesses will adopt these practices to reduce their operating costs, and you will just benefit from by way of being a consumer, but you'll have no idea it's actually operating. It depends who you ask. If you ask McKinsey, let's say their report came out and said it'll reach full maturity in 2025. So that's not quite 3 years. But if you ask Gartner, they're saying that in the next 2 years it'll be adopted. Or the World Economic Forum by 2027 said that 10% of gross domestic produce globally will be on blockchain. So depending on who you're asking, it really looks at the landscape, which tells me one thing: if there's no consensus on where it's going to be, then it's really up to personal opinion. So my personal opinion, as I stated before, is, for me, I really think it'll be driven by the equity markets. If there's a big downturn in the equity markets, businesses have smaller balance sheets, they're going to be forced to find operational efficiencies, which is arguably one of the greatest use cases for blockchain.
I think there are a few things that may happen. First of all, after 2 or 3 more years, we should not have this kind of blockchain conference, because we should be all using blockchain without knowing. It's like a database. So nowadays you use banking system, you use credit card and all that. They may be using DB2, SQL Server, or Oracle. We don't know. So blockchain is a data layer technology. It should not be affecting normal users. Secondly, as I said, there will be technology convergence. So we are going to see IoT integrating with blockchain, because physical supply chain need to integrate with digital chains. There will be AI building on top of blockchain due to the big data created. There will be open APIs created out of these AI applications, because again, a lot of startups should not spend a lot of time trying to create channel strategies. They can work with big guys to enable their customer or enhance their customer experience. So that is a much more cost-effective approach. So I also run startup before, so I feel the pain of all these entrepreneurs. I think that is an easier way to get technology or technology companies successful in the future.
Cool. That was actually the last question for the panel today. So thank you guys for joining me on stage today.
Thank you.
Please give a round of applause for the panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Give another round of applause for our great panel with a very interesting discussion. Next, we have a very special guest, but he won't be joining us in person today. So there will be a digital keynote from the Minister of Finance from the Republic of Lithuania. This is Vilius Šapoka.
Dear colleagues, my warm welcome and greetings from Lithuania. It's a great honor to be here, at least virtually on stage, and I have a very important question to you. Is it possible to combine speed and security in the financial world? If yes, where, when, and how? Answering the question where, I don't know many countries, but at least one, for example, Lithuania. If we want to have a great, vibrant environment in fintech industry, so you should visit Lithuania and we will share our experience. Lithuania is a great country in the northern part of Europe. The world is spinning very fast, especially in the financial world. Each country is trying to solve those challenges by their own. And we can see that on the global agendas, those topics appear very frequently. But now we need not only debates and new ideas. Those challenges are global, so we need global solutions. Now, how my country managed to become one of the leading fintech centers in the world? My answer is very clear. We have a very straightforward strategy. We have a very clear regulatory environment. This is why our fintech industry is just booming. It's not about removing requirements, it's about removing unnecessary burden. Blockchain is future-ready technology. And it can be employed not just only in fintech industry. It can be used in a wide area of sectors. It can be used in energy, it can be used in railway industry, it can be used in registers, so almost anywhere. Innovations are not related with opportunities. Of course, alongside we have many risks. And we cannot ignore them in ICOs, in the area of anti-money laundering, cybersecurity, data protection, consumer protection. So we need answers to all those questions. Market participants need to know very clear red lines, very clear sandbox regimes, very clear requirements. A little example about ICOs. It's a risky area. Lithuania was one of the first countries in the world which decided to issue guidelines, the most comprehensive guidelines in the area of ICOs. In order to ensure sufficient level of investor protection, in order to show clarity for the market in the area of taxation, accounting, and one of the most important issues and risks related with ICOs is anti-money laundering. All those questions are answered in our guidelines. I am very proud and we would like to share with you. And by the way, there is no copyright fee. Let me remind the most important question. Is it possible to combine speed and security in the financial world? Of course, the answer is yes. I have a story about this, about a mother and her son, a pilot. And she told him, please, fly low and slow. Is it secure? No. So, fasten your seatbelt. Let's fly high and very quickly. And you'll learn more on the 8th of November in Vilnius, in Lithuania, in FinTech conference. Save the date, 8th of November. See you in Vilnius.
Following that session, we will have a panel discussion from two government leaders and their views on blockchain and its regulation. So please welcome to the stage our speaker, Loreta Maskaloviana, Vice Minister of Finance, Republic of Lithuania, Dermander Sesungkur, Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance, Republic of Mauritius. And also Yas Ginting, Chairman of Permanent Committee of International Trade, Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Also, our moderator for this session, David Ben Kay, Chief Legal Counsel from Pundi X.
Welcome back. So I think it's very appropriate that this morning we had a demo that I think is really revolutionary, where we see the future of blockchain and where it's going. And I think that it's important to put it within a context of the reality, and that's government and regulators, and the task that they have in terms of balancing trying to support this kind of extraordinary innovation while at the same time having challenges to protect the population, to be concerned about security. So I'm very honored to be able to moderate this panel with these distinguished guests, both the Vice Minister from Mauritius and the Minister from, Minister from Mauritius, the Vice Minister from Lithuania, and Jos, who's a friend and who, from the Chamber of Commerce of Indonesia's point of view, gets to be that interlocutor between business and government, and really in being on the side of industry but trying to help government understand the changes. I think we're also very fortunate because we have representatives of two small nations, of both Lithuania and Mauritius, being the small nations who have a great kind of agility to be able to deal with new technologies, and then somebody who comes from one of the largest nations of the world. And they all have different challenges to face them. So I'd like to actually start off by having each of these individuals introduce their country and where it stands in terms of the regulatory environment for blockchain and for cryptocurrencies. Maybe, Vice Minister, you could begin?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. Just good morning in Lithuania for everyone. And it's a great honor to be here to discuss about new opportunities and new challenges in different type of sector through the blockchain. Lithuanian government have very quite clear priority for the innovations and new technologies, and I'm really proud of it. And innovations comes when we're talking not about blockchain or financial technologies. It is important for education, for health, for energy sector, for green investments, everywhere where we are talking about the reforms, changing challenges everywhere. And new technologies is coming daily life for us, for everybody. Small example from our presentation and speech of our minister. And on one time you can be in different places. Today, our minister are preparing presentation for national parliament about next year budget, and at the same time was together with you to present a message from Lithuania. I would like to believe the next time will be opposite. He has possibility to discuss with you reality and to present next year budget to our parliament through the technologies. When we're talking financial sector, it's growing very fast, and particularly in Lithuania, we have very good opportunity for cooperation between the different institutions, public institutions, when we're discussing about financial sector and innovations, and when we're discussing with the private market players about financial technologies. And I'm glad to say that Lithuania corporations have very success results. Starting from the beginning, a few years ago, Berkeley established Rice Vilnius Innovation Hub. It was the first hub. Today we have a lot of them, and we are discussing about the CAB Innovation Hub, huge bank, traditional bank. Also we have a blockchain innovation hub, and next year, Lithuanian bank, central bank, are planning to open the LB chain regulatory and technology sandbox, where all domestic and foreign companies can develop, exchange some experience and test all blockchain technologies in the practice. When we are talking about blockchain, it's not about financial technologies, of course. It comes maybe from this sector, but today we are analyzing different type of possibilities, and in Lithuania in particular, we are working in blockchain in green energy, in the communication, in the health sector, and food industry, and for example, Lithuanian Railway, they analyzing and creating possibility blockchain in traffic regulation platforms. And there's a lot of possibilities for this blockchain technology. I believe that there is a future. It comes from cryptocurrency and ACOs. Lithuanians, open-minded people, very active in this sector also, and we couldn't close the eyes and ignore it. We should proactive, regulatory proactive to react on it and closely cooperate together with different type, very serious institutions like Financial Crime Investigation Office, Tax Inspectorate, other Lithuanian bank, other institutions. We create together, I think, very comprehensive guidelines about ACOs, and they are about regulation. We analyze all regulations, starting from the EU regulation and till the Lithuanian domestic regulations, and provide the guidelines about regulation, taxation, accounting. I think that there is the first practice in the world to try to explain in legal way how to do it. And it is about security. Speed is in the private sector, more or less. Security is in the public sector, if we are talking about speed and security together. These guidelines you can find in English also in Lithuania Ministry of Finance website, where I will be happy if you will be interested. Send for us the questions. It is very important for us for improving these guidelines and use in reality. When we are talking about particular and financial sector innovations, it's not about one country. It is directly linked with the global challenges, global decisions. And it is important today to have very close cooperation, very close agreement now on the decision in global way.
Here we hear from a very cold country that's on the, the cusp of Europe and an entree to Europe. Where does Mauritius fall in this whole area in terms of its regulatory environment for blockchains and for cryptocurrencies?
Thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to be here. I'll start by introducing myself. I'm Dharmender Sisankar. I'm the Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance. And for those who are not, who do not really know where Mauritius is, it's not very far from the east coast of Africa, around in the middle of the Indian Ocean. But although being a touristic island, we have also a very developed financial center, which is doing extremely well. And we have been probably the number one investor in India, by way of FDI. So it's a well-developed financial center, very vibrant, and in Mauritius, it is good to know that the government is really committed. We are not against innovation and technology. In fact, we have a ministry which is in charge of innovation, and the Prime Minister himself is very committed and forceful in developing the latest technology in blockchain, fintech, AI. So we have the regulatory, the basic regulatory framework in place to start processing application from startups. In fact, I would say we have the regulatory sandbox license, and we have already received approximately 60 applications by startups, and there is a big interest for Mauritius because we are #1 in ease of doing business in Africa. We are also a top leading country in ease of doing business for World Bank. So we have the regulatory sandbox license, which is already taking on board application from startups. The committee has already started its work. We have started analyzing the applications. And as I said, the tone at the top, at the government level, we are very much interested to push in that direction so that Mauritius continues on the path of development and is ahead of the curve in terms of technological advancement, and also provide advanced services in financial services sector to the African continent, of which we are part of it. And the big symbolism today on this stage is that we have a representative from Africa, one from Europe, and also our friend from Asia. So it's reflective of the trend going on in terms of movement of change in the world. So I'll stop here for the time being. I'm sure we'll have opportunity to discuss more later on.
And so, I mean, I think you brought up two really key words in terms of change and momentum. And so smaller countries have that luxury, if you will, of being agile, of being able to have a determination from on top that, yes, we want to become a hub, yes, we want to be welcoming technology. And then we have a large country like Indonesia that will, you know, maybe even look to the experiences of smaller countries. But Jos, tell us where Indonesia is right now in this whole...
Thanks, David. In my view, I think the knowledge, the understanding, and obviously also the adoptions of the technology in Indonesia is at very early stage. It's actually good that Indonesia is in that very early stage. First, as what David mentions, we will have opportunity, and we do have opportunities to look and learn on countries like Lithuania, like Mauritius, on what will be the best approach in terms of the regulatory environment that will take the full advantage of this technology. What is so encouraging with Indonesian situations, David, is that the government, I think, understand the potential of this technology. They started to really want to know about it, and this is why the reason, roughly about 3 or 4 months ago, I asked colleagues who are in the sector to let's form an association, because that will be required for us, the player, to be able to communicate to the government, inform them, share the knowledge, and therefore help them hand in hand, be a real partner to shape up the regulatory that will take the full advantage of the technology. In the meantime, however, I think, and thanks to our government, they do not want to regulate too quickly, we were advised to, play around with the technology, have fun with technology. I'll let you to do what you want to do. As long as you are small enough and does not create friction to the big populations of Indonesia or creating a potential big impact, I'll let you do it. Hopefully, what I'm hoping is that as we progress, as the Indonesian blockchain projects or initiatives that are started by Indonesian progresses, we can learn from countries like Lithuania, like Mauritius, share that information to our government, and therefore able to advise what will be the regulatory environment that will ensure that Indonesia and Indonesians as a whole able to take the full benefit.
Right. So that partnership between industry and government is so important, and ICOs are obviously a really hot topic because it's provided a new means for young companies to finance themselves without going on a stock exchange or seeking venture capital. So ICOs have been a very exciting kind of development over the past few years. At the same time, I just read in a recent report that at least 80% of all ICOs are scams. So my question is, how do you, here we have a new means for these startup technology companies to get funded, but we have a means of doing it that sometimes can turn into a scam. From regulators' point of view, how do you balance those? How do you say, okay, here we can put you in a sandbox, we can introduce you to a regulatory environment, we can provide all of these benefits, but we're not going to give you money. You're going to have to go out and get money on your own. And there are these various means of doing it. And for blockchain companies, the obvious choice is going with an ICO. So how does Mauritius deal with ICOs?
Yes, I would like to talk about how Mauritius is tackling this. In fact, there is a big gap in terms of what the concerns of policymakers are and regulators are, and also the speed with which startups want to move. We have to reconcile the two expectations. So what we've done in Mauritius is that we know that technology, fintech, AI will be driving the next revolution. So we have introduced a regulatory sandbox license, which will basically provide the necessary licenses, the necessary approval for startups to start their business. And at the same time, the main regulators, they will be monitoring the situation. And as you said, indeed, there is an element of trust which we need to address, because when we talk about ICOs, we talk about fintech, about startups entering the financial services sector, we have to be very careful, because as policymakers, as government, we need to balance the interests of the nation as opposed to the interests of individuals or stakeholders. It is very important to protect the system. That's why we are proceeding cautiously. We are not against innovation, we're not against technology. We are opening up our market, but at the same time, there might be risk over there. We need to be careful, and our strategy, our approach has been to start with a regulatory sandbox license, because there is no big clarity about what the startup is going to do and what would be the potential risk to the system. So by proceeding in this way, we are careful. We believe that we can manage our risk in a better way, and at the same time allow new startups to emerge, youngsters to endeavor to enterprise, And we are hopeful that Mauritius will be a topmost provider of the platform for new startups to emerge and to develop themselves in this part of the globe. Thank you.
And Lithuania. So Lithuania, here on the one hand, is being, has all of these communities starting up with startups and everything, and then they get to the issue of financing.
Yeah.
And so ICOs are, again, the natural choice. How is Lithuania dealing with ICOs?
Maybe let's start from the digital transformation. When we're talking about digital transformation, not digital is a question. Transformation and process of transformation, there is a question. Changing of our life, changing of our future, and our view to the same thing in different way. There should be enough place for innovation and startups, but at the same time, of course, we understand the risks, and we should create red lines or clear and very simple regulation for the safety, security. We're improving our laws, example, for the money laundering, for the customers protection, for the trust of investors, and this together goes when we are close to the market, when we discuss and we are in line with the technologies. And we should know all new technologies, and I don't think that regulator can be in front of technologies because it kills one another. Innovation first, but regulation should be in line with them.
And where's Indonesia? If I want to do an ICO based in Indonesia, what's the answer?
It's unregulated. So I'd like to take the perspective from the Vice Minister just now. I think it's a very important point. The regulations is always or probably best to be positioned after the innovation. So
not too late, but
not too late, but it cannot be in the front because that will stifle the innovation itself. The innovation, by definition, you don't really able to see what will be the end point, but you need some regulations for the certainty when you are in the sector. So the challenges therefore, and this is what we are encouraging our association member, is to be able to help some kind of like positions and help the government to understand what are actually needed for those players so that they can actually not only survive but also being able to grow and be successful. So far, again, in an unregulated situations like Indonesia, depending on your perspective, it can be good, it can be not so good. I tend to sit on more on the positive side because when we discussed with the government, they said that, look, you do it. If you created a problem, I'll summon you. So I think that's kind of like a message which is probably not too certain, but it allows the player to have some kind of like confidence that as long as they are also having a good definition or a good goal, a positive end result, not deliberately trying to scam the population, they're not supposed to be afraid. If you are experimenting about a phone call that cannot be stopped, if you are experimenting about a transaction that cannot be stopped by anybody, do it. Eventually, when the government when the government have some concern, they will ask you, you help me how to prevent certain things. And bear in mind, there are a lot more well-intentioned blockchain users than the ill-intentioned blockchain user. That's how I always convince the government. Yes, ill-intentioned people, there's always there, whether in the conventional technology or in the new technology. That one will always be there, but we should not then create rules that will stifle the innovation just because we are afraid that this will be used by the very small number of ill-intentioned people.
Right, and so you bring up a general idea that I'd like to explore a little bit more, and that is the partnership between, or the potential partnership between government and particularly blockchain companies. And so government is providing in terms of a sandbox, or in terms of a good legal environment, or in terms of non-regulating. But I think it's important for blockchain industries in particular to look to see what the government needs. So we're dealing with a technology that has huge potential. We've seen it helpful in areas like land registries in Sweden, in terms of assisting with remittances for those countries that have a large population outside of their borders and coming in. So I think it's important also, while the government's giving this very positive and welcoming sign, to also say what kind of problems that you're facing that maybe this technology could provide a solution to. So, you know, one of those things that comes to mind are the ability of smart contracts to really address issues of corruption, dealing just maybe even at the government procurement level, but being able to trace these things, or being able to address issues of poor construction on infrastructure. When you have a bridge that falls down and then you look back and you find, oh, certain chemicals were missing from the concrete. And these are things that, in fact, this technology can help address. I'd like to hear from you from that point of view of what you think the industry can help you with.
Thank you for this question. During my last 2 days stay in Bali, I had the opportunity of meeting a number of experts in blockchain, and indeed, it is an extremely powerful technology, powerful tool for government to improve efficiency of public services, in addressing public problems, and why not, even in the private sector. So we are aware of this. But we also concerned about the kind of ambiguity, the kind of confusion which, while talking to those experts, I've come across, because there are so many operators, so many startups doing the same thing, and we don't know whether there will be a common platform where all these systems will converge, or will it be a platform for each and every country, each and every ministry? So these are questions that will have to be addressed. Indeed, government are very interested with latest solutions to problems, to complex problems of society, and we would like to use the latest technologies and methodologies to manage to govern in the best possible way our society. I would like to also to react to the subject just before this question. We have to be aware, especially businesses, that the element of certainty is critical in any business initiative. If there is no certainty, there will be a kind of reluctance for the capital market, for investors to invest in projects. So in Mauritius, we have identified that problem, and we have ensured that whoever embark on a new project, on a startup, should have the guarantee, once they have this regulatory sandbox license, they are guaranteed that the project will not be stopped, and they have the liberty of taking the project till the end. So that's the certainty element which we are guaranteeing. We do not want that some startups to come in Mauritius, start something, and then at the middle of the road, they are stopped by government people saying that this is not allowed, or the law doesn't allow this and that. So we are providing certainty to the startups. So This is how we are proceeding.
Very good. And how does Lithuania, what can we do for you?
I think that blockchain technologies can change everything in the public sector in particular, because you can imagine how quickly can be all services in public sector when we're talking on health sector, for example, and how can be efficiency. And Zach excited presentation, it shows that bad news for example, global operators, it is huge competition, but at another side, it is a huge possibility to improve, to be close each other, and to be much more quickly when we are talking about public procurement, about railway monitoring traffic, about everything in the public sector also. And to work together, we can find the best solutions also. And there is one way for the future. I think it's not very far future. It is for today.
Right. And so with Indonesia, I mean, after all, Pundi X really began here, and motivated by a new demographic that we identify as the unbanked. Correct. That there are around 10, maybe 20% of the Indonesians have any kind of relationship with a bank, including a bank account or credit cards. Yeah. And so the motivation behind Pundi X initially was to extend financial services, even at the most basic level, to the masses. Yeah. What else do you see?
Yeah, I think a very good point there, David. I and colleagues in the association position ourselves to try to have an implementation of the technology that is useful and it can also be easily digested. The Pundi X Expose is one of a very good example. It's easily be digested in terms of its use. It's also demystify that the technology is only related to cryptocurrency, which is used for speculative activities, which are rampant to scam, etc., etc. So we are encouraging, and I think the right position for Indonesian player is try to have an implementation that is useful, whether that's financial inclusivity, whether that's in terms of land registry, whether that's in implementations in terms of the social security system, which will make the government also more willing to actually to support, because they can also see that not only it is beneficial for the people in general, but it's also needed by the country. And as much as so far the member of the associations feels okay being player in an unregulated sector, we would love to have, hopefully very soon, some kind of certainty. But it's also then the challenge for the member of the association to be able not just to say, no, I don't like it after the government issue the regulations, but also to be able to present and to be able to explain what is actually needed before the regulation is actually being finalized.
Right. Just a short add, when I mentioned that innovation is first priority in Lithuania, and what your question was about blockchain, private sector can help us. I think together we can reach much more results. We have excellent IT infrastructure, regulations, environment, tax holidays for innovation in Lithuania, talent pool, everything together can create a boom in this sector. And now we are just have a new brand of Lithuania, Litechnia. All technologies in everywhere, every sectors. Yeah.
Well, I think every nation wants to fill that role, and to be the magnet for this kind of innovation. And I think every nation is struggling with how to balance these things, and it's I think really important. And I very much appreciate your sharing sort of the regulator's view and that kind of in-between place between regulator and industry. So thank you very much for
thank you.
the
Thank you, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you so much to all the speakers. Now we have another panel discussion about how blockchain technology is disrupting financial market. And I would like to welcome to the stage our speakers, Sam Ahmed, Managing Director of Deriv Asia, Thomas McMahon, CEO of Clear Digital, Marcelo Garcia Casel, founder and CEO of Maecenas.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sam Ahmed, and I've got Marcelo Casel and Tom McMahon with us, and we're going to talk about how blockchain and crypto is disrupting the financial markets. I would love to have my presentation on stage. That would help. Okay, well, while we wait for that, I'll just introduce myself for 1 minute, and then we can introduce each other as well. So my name is Sam, and I run the Asian franchise of a global consultancy. We work with central banks, asset managers, regional banks, and exchanges, and we try and identify workflows in the financial markets, in the bond market, derivatives market, equity markets, where we can apply blockchain. So that's what we're doing. We're also advising crypto exchanges and crypto startups on how to move to the institutional world. Okay? Marcelo, why don't you give a little bit of an introduction on the backdrop of what looks like a nightclub? But
hi everyone, it's a pleasure an honor to be here today. Thanks Sam for the introduction. So, my name is Marcelo. I'm the founder and CEO of Maecenas. My background is in financial technology, first technology, then finance. Mostly working for investment banks in London, then Singapore. And about 4 years ago, decided to start my own company after learning how transformational blockchain and cryptocurrencies could be, and that's how I decided to found my starter company. Fast forward to today, I'm running Maecenas, which is a platform that uses blockchain to tokenize or fractionalize artwork that's too expensive otherwise for individuals to purchase outright, but that could be a good investment for individuals to spend a few $1,000s on owning a fraction of the economic rights of the artwork. We launched 3 months ago. We sold the first artwork successfully, a piece by Andy Warhol that raised close to $2 million for a $5.6 million valuation. And here we are.
Thanks. And Tom?
Thanks, Sam. Nice to be here. Yeah, my background is I come out of the commodity trading industry. I spent 20 plus years on Wall Street as a member of New York Mercantile Exchange and New York Board of Trade, and did work in Chicago, and began to come out to Asia in the 90s and realized that there was an opportunity to replicate some of those processes and build some robust exchange architectures. And I've had the privilege of doing exchange work in Tokyo and Shanghai and Hong Kong and Shenzhen and Singapore, and then out into Dubai. And to fast forward, in 2014, I was introduced to the first blockchain that I had seen relative to how you would domicile an asset on a chain in a ledger architecture. And that was done, the group out of Toronto called BitGold, that have now evolved into a company called Gold Money. And it was early days, but it gave me a view on the potential of the disruption of traditional exchange market architectures, but the employment of immutable, irrefutable in terms of tracking real things. For me, it was commodities. So I head up an enterprise called Clear, and Clear's vision is to basically digitize commodities in the exchange space and also work across Asia to take either stranded asset classes of commodities or mainstream energy and metals products and basically tokenize them. And tokenization can be representative of above-the-line deals at commercial levels, moving a cargo of LNG out of Qatar to Japan, or it can be at the mining level, where you've got in-the-ground stranded assets for enterprises that need to have cash flows on future production, and that you can tokenize the investments all the way down to gram or cubic meter units, either pre-sell and I'll follow them all the way through the entire production and refining and delivery food chains. So that's what I've been doing. And it's really an adaptation and a disruption of traditional market architectures and then moving forward into tokenization and digital payment solutions.
Great, thank you. Well timed. My presentation is up. So anyways, let's get on to it. Really quick 10 minutes of why the time is ripe for disruption now. Okay, so how does this work? It would help if the token worked.
Marcelo said to me that a blockchain would fix this.
With the presentation on the smart contract.
All right. The two leading factors that's happening in the financial market that's leading up to the use of blockchain and cryptos, first is regulation. Since the financial crisis, every aspect of the financial market has been really strongly controlled by regulations. As a result, we're seeing global banks actually pulling out of financial markets. The third factor we're seeing is there's global political instability. And this is also leading a large segment of the global population and institutions to find an alternative market structure. So the global regulations, I'm not going to talk too much about them, but they were originated in the US and Europe. And in 2009 to 2014, we have seen large amount of these US regulators and European regulators pushing these regulations onto Asia. And Asia, as you know, is at a very nascent stage of financial market growth. So the countries that are suffering the most globally have been the Asian markets. And the Asian markets, therefore, are the prime jurisdictions for disruption because they are looking for an alternative market structure. I'm not going to go too much into this, but I just want to give you an example of how difficult and challenging it is to trade today in the financial markets. At every point of the trade life cycle, whether you talk about execution, post-trade, clearing, collateral, settlement, custody, or accounting, there are various regulations that come in. And what you need to know is that these regulations actually bear a cost, right? So the entire market structure of financial instruments is more expensive as a result of regulations. Now, this is important. If you look at the diagram, you'll see the regulations are impacting the banks and brokers. The regulations are meant for banks and brokers because banks and brokers started the financial crisis. But what we're seeing today is that the banks and brokers have done a great job in absorbing the regulations and implementing very smart sort of workflows whereby they pass the cost back to the end client. So who's actually bearing the cost of the regulation? It's not the banks and buy side, it's not the banks and brokers, it's actually the end client. And this is forcing the end client to look for alternative ways of accessing the market, and hence there is tremendous interest in disintermediation platforms like P2P platforms and decentralized platforms that we'll talk about today. Apart from regulation, there are a couple of really interesting dynamics that's happening politically. First of all, we are seeing amongst asset managers an over-concentration in US dollar-denominated portfolios, right? Everyone regionally, as well as globally, all the asset managers, they're getting nervous about having too much exposure to US dollars, and they're looking at ways of dollar diversification. Secondly, there's a whole host of political tensions that is actually creating the push factor to push people away from traditional asset classes and onto cryptos. Examples are the trade wars that you're seeing today with China and the US. Regional conflicts like the one you see in Syria is bifurcating the political environment. You have China and Russia on one side and you have the US on the other. The problem is that when you have these bifurcations, no one trusts each other currencies. And that's another dimension that we're going to talk about. We have the example of Standard Chartered. If you look, Standard Chartered got massive fines in 2014 for dealing with Iran. Now, how did they actually get those fines? It was because they used US dollars, which actually flows through the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve can see all the transactions. So, as a result, you also had other interesting developments like the Gazprom deal, the largest deal in history with commodities between China and Russia, 90% of which was done with offshore renminbi. So you can see the world is gradually pulling away from US dollars. But let's look at fiat currencies. Fiat currencies has lost credibility as well because governments and central banks have been printing money. So the currency that you have in your pocket is not held by any intrinsic value. If you go to the bank and withdraw all your savings tomorrow, and if most people do it, there is a likelihood that the bank will not be able to honor what you have in the account. So my question to you is, what's the difference between cryptocurrencies, which is backed by complex algorithms, and your paper money? And to answer the question, very little. But to end this, I just want to say there is a large consensus amongst a growing number of the world, various segments in the population that really are looking for an alternative means of exchange. Okay, so this brings me to my final two slides. The two key trends we are seeing in blockchain is this. The first, we're seeing tokenization. The bond markets, the equity markets, the FX markets, and derivative markets, through tokenization of their assets and through the use of smart contracts, can actually replicate 100% of the traditional workflows that takes place off-chain in real exchanges. Okay, we're seeing that. We're trying to bring, my company works with various banks and central banks. We're trying to bring those traditional exchange workflows onto the blockchain and digitalizing everything so that we don't need to wait T+2 or T+3 for settlements. So we don't need to pay so much for post-trade costs. The second thing we're seeing is crypto as a completely independent asset class for institutional investors, for asset managers like BlackRock. And this is not a fantasy. We speak to asset managers on a monthly basis, and the big asset managers want to diversify. They want to include cryptos as an asset class. The only problem is this. It's not so much government regulations. It's you need a real custodian, a traditional custodian like State Street, JP Morgan, Citi, to really have cryptos as an asset class. Without that, you can't move, and we'll talk about that. So my final slide before we go to having discussions is this. The challenges of adopting blockchain. First of all, volatility. Every regulator you come across says the same thing. No, we can't have cryptocurrency as a means of exchange. Why? Because it's too volatile. But the thing is, they don't understand that it's a chicken and the egg. The reason why there's volatility is because you're not allowing cryptos to come into the real economy for the exchange of goods and services. Once you do, the volatility will decrease. Speed and data is another. Currently, I think most blockchains that we're working with, whether it's Ethereum, Neo, Hyperledger, the TPS, the transaction speed, is around between 7 to 25. Okay, you can't really beat the main exchanges and the main vendor platforms, which have about 20,000 TPS, right? Now, whether they do or not, we'll discuss this later with the boys. Environment. There is an impact of mining, which is considered negative for the environment. There's other solutions. Like Gulam, for example, is creating a solution where you don't actually need large physical machines mining. You can actually use the spare capacity on your mobile phone or in your laptop, connect the whole world, and for the spare capacity that you give up, you get paid for it. Now, is it in production today? No, obviously not. Will it be in production? I totally believe it. I'm going to discuss with my panels what they think. And we're going to talk about other stuff like security, the regulatory environment, and we're going to talk about fragmentation and interoperability. Because there's so many exchanges today, crypto exchanges. Then there's real-world exchanges. There's so many blockchains. How are these exchanges interoperable with each other? How is an ERC20 token on Ethereum compatible with a protocol using Neo's blockchain? How are we going to connect everything, right? So these are some of the challenges for adoption. So with that, we will start the panel. Marcelo, let's get straight into it. Let's talk about, do you think the world, the financial markets is ready? Instead of thinking about central banks, instead of thinking about centralized exchanges, having the middleman, having the broker, can you visualize a stage where everyone can access the market, no middlemen, no central banks, and we have a decentralized, well, let's just say multiple decentralized exchanges all interconnected?
Well, yes and no. So I think that's a really good vision to have, and certainly decentralization brings a wealth of benefits. And I know much is being said about transparency and access and fairness when you decentralize a platform. And in most cases that is true, but there's, as you said, there's challenges. And in the same way that not everything is better if it's decentralized, not everything is better if it's blockchainized. And there's certain value chains that today inevitably involve intermediaries which have almost no value or questionable value. And those, to me, would be the first candidates to benefit from decentralization. But I'm touching on one of the angles that you mentioned around speed and data. So I don't believe in full decentralization. I think you still need companies to be liable, and for a company to be liable, they need to have a certain degree of control. And certain degree of control involves centralization. and trust in that institution. So maybe full decentralization makes sense for something that's digitally native, like Bitcoin. But when you touch in the real world, when you have assets that exist within legal boundaries that are connected to jurisdictions, then you cannot have full decentralization. That's my view, and that's the approach we're taking as a company with Macinus.
Okay. And Tom, what's your view? I mean, do you think the decentralization is about to enter into the financial markets, or do you still think we will need, as Marcelo mentioned, we'll need some degree of control, some degree of centralization?
I think we're going to wind up with hybrid models. I mean, I think private chain, public chain, and it really is going to be divided. Regulators is going to be one. We've got real borders, whether we believe it or not. It's an uneven regulatory. We've got uneven taxation. There's going to be certain things that are going to be prohibitive for a fully decentralized to work around. But I think really it'll break down from a product basis. Are you talking about a collateral, a real asset-backed token or something like that that can sit on a private chain where you've got custodian and collateral management systems, ownership, not necessarily velocity, as opposed to the pure currency itself. I think the currencies themselves can sit on the decentralized nature, and they'll cross. And I think that's really where the dividing line is going to be. So whether it's a Bitcoin or a gold token, in simple terms, they'll sit differently on the chain models.
Okay, and then let me, sorry, did you want to say something? Or? Okay, let me just throw it back to you from a different angle, from the crypto angle, as we talked about. Now, you grew up in the US, and I just want to ask you that, everything that's happening with the Trump administration, closing off trades, it's not about closing off trades only, it's closing off information flow and data flow. And then just making, having quite punitive action against crypto exchanges or platforms in the US. Would you say that that's actually leading to liquidity going outside the US to these crypto exchanges that are developing in Singapore, Gibraltar, and so on and so forth? Do you see that, that's actually expediting it, the growth of cryptos?
Well, yeah, I think partially, yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, always the elephant in the room is always US, SEC, CFTC, anybody, Reg D, and all the acronyms that are being thrown around. And then there's the rest of the world. There's 385 million Americans, and there's 7+ billion people in the world. So there's a lot of space outside the U.S. The problem is U.S. dollars, and the problem is taxation. If you can de-link and go to you refer to it as non-dollarization, I call it dollar neutralization. If you break that link, and if you're ex-U.S., then you break the global taxation link, and then you got the rest of the world to deal with. That is definitely incentivizing growth. There's no doubt that there's regulatory arbitrage going on, not too different than what happened post-Lehman, when you had all the traditional market architectures of Dodd-Frank, AMIR, ESMA, Basel III. It's endless. Not relevant currently at crypto level, but I think going beyond that, whether it's Malta or Singapore or Tokyo or Latvia or Gibraltar, each will emerge differently, but I think it's going to be U.S. ex-U.S. is where it's going to line up.
Okay. Marcelo, I'll bring the conversation back to a bit of the platform about the infrastructure. Now, yes, currently we cannot shift the whole financial market onto the blockchain because blockchain is limited with speed. And even the data, right? I mean, how do you resolve the issue of having so much of the data on the blockchain? I know you guys talk about having data off blockchain and having some of the private keys on the blockchain, but how do you resolve speed and data, and how would you bring the financial markets onto the blockchain? Is it impossible?
No, it's not impossible. And asking this question today would be equivalent to asking the question of how would you transmit real-time video 30 years ago, right? And I remember those conversations at the time, people saying it's impossible, it's just never going to have that much capacity, the bandwidth of networks just don't support it, right? So you have to look at blockchain, not crypto, blockchain as a protocol. So protocols allow technology to evolve because protocols can lean on each other, right? So TCP/IP powers the internet, but with TCP/IP alone, you can have Facebook, you can have Instagram, definitely you can have YouTube or Skype, right? Those are applications that were built on top of protocols, frameworks, and they were embraced by the development community. So blockchain through crypto proved its worth, and it hasn't gone away in spite of all the efforts by central banks and regulators to try to crash and oppress cryptocurrencies. They're still around and they're stronger than ever. I don't look at the prices, I just look at the trend. Yes. And the trend is incredibly strong. Over the last 5 years, it's incredibly strong. Crypto as an asset class it has outperformed everything else over the last 5 years. Right? So when people say we are in a bear market, I say which market is bear? I see only bullish markets here. And in every measure, blockchain and crypto are very strong. So if blockchain has proven through crypto that is incredibly valuable as a medium of exchange, then the applications that the financial world today require, which are very sophisticated, they require KYC, storing data, segregation of duties, collateral management and custody and so on, they need to be built on top, and that takes time. If we go around the exhibition booth here, you talk to people who are building decentralized databases, more efficient ways for blockchain to store information, to retrieve it, to make sure it can be shared privately without disclosing unnecessary details. So those platforms take time. 5 years ago, we didn't even have smart contracts. Now we do. Now we have quite a few platforms that implement smart contracts. So to me, it's just a matter of time. We need to allow technology to evolve, people to understand it, regulators to feel comfortable with it, for it to be fully embraced by financial markets.
Okay, and then I'll switch a bit to you, Tom. Obviously, Tom, you have 40 years experience dealing with exchanges. You were CEO of Simex Exchange in Singapore. Let's now move to the digital world. As I mentioned, there are so many exchanges coming up, and a lot of these exchanges are on different platforms. So let's just hypothetically say that, the Chinese finally decide to allow cryptocurrencies, and the Chinese government, because they love centralized exchanges, they allow NEO to build the biggest exchange in China for financial derivatives, right? But then let's say that, SGX, as you know, has already decided to build on the blockchain using a completely different blockchain. So all these multitudes of exchanges come up, right? How likely is it that we see interoperability? What needs to be done to connect all the exchanges and the protocols?
Yeah, you're coming from the traditional exchange space. If you look at interoperability, there's virtually none. The New York Stock Exchange, it took them 114 years to get connected to another exchange. If you look at the CME, which is the biggest commodity exchange in the world, it took them, I think, 22 years actually to come to an agreement with Singapore for a cross-clearing agreement. I can give you a bunch of examples of decades. We've seen exchanges just after the Japan licensing of an entity like Coin. Within weeks, they had signed cross-exchange agreements. It's the platform that gives you the interoperability. There's not proprietary silos being built. Are there unique products being built? Absolutely. Is there a product that sits in Japan that doesn't necessarily sit in Gibraltar? Absolutely. Can we trade across that? We can in real time. That's the scalability. So onshore China, today, the exchanges still sit in isolation. Yes, there are points of entry for you to trade across the border into their equities markets or commodities markets, but it's still very constricted, whether it's currency or regulation or taxation, settlement, deliveries. It breaks the barrier down. So even if NEO scaled in China and for some reason a wall went up, they'll live in isolation, and the rest of the world will build around them.
I guess that's a bad example, NEO and China, because China have a huge... No, it's my bad example, because China has a huge organic market, so they don't need to connect maybe to other markets.
The dream scenario has always been for people, excuse me, if you look at traditional markets have always wanted to get flow out of China and get inside of China, and no one has been able to do that yet, really on a
Well,
on a
there's a
full-time
connect,
basis.
Hong Kong, Shanghai connect.
Well, that's it, and it's usually, if you look at the statistics on that, one day it'll be a northbound trade, the next day it's a southbound trade. There's no consistency either way, and you never know which day it runs hot and cold. I think crypto flattens that out, simply because of the market access points are not proprietary. You neutralize it depending on the chains and ledgers that you're sitting on.
Okay. And let me just ask on that note, Marcelo, same question to you, more from a technical perspective. How would blockchains talk to each other in the future in terms of, you have different protocols like ERC20 against NEP5s or different smart contracts in different blockchains. Can you make them interoperable with each other?
The short answer is not easily. Smart contracts are essentially programs, and if they don't use the same programming language, then they're essentially not compatible. I think it comes down to what you mean by interoperability, right? So if you just want communication to flow, if you want data to flow between blockchains, then that's certainly possible by building a common layer. That will require, obviously, platforms to agree and support each other to build a standard. I don't think that's necessary today. We still are very far away from mass worldwide adoption. And if you look at the history of technology, standards emerge by themselves, by natural selection. The best technology is not necessarily always the one that wins, but one of the leading solutions gains traction for whatever reason, because they have the strongest development community, or because they have some endorsement by a government or a large corporation. To me, I see it as a non-problem.
But do you want a world? I mean, isn't the whole point of crypto and Bitcoin and blockchain to decentralize things? Do we want a world where Google owns the only browser or Facebook is the only social media? I mean, don't we want a totally diversified world which is interconnected, but not one company has that monopoly?
Yes, but that's idealistic, right? If we look at technology, technology tends to converge, right? So the leading position may change over time, but the people sort of consumers and users of technology, they tend to go in one direction. And it seems to be that history tells us that once you have a player that's too dominant, people start becoming worried. And we've seen that with Facebook, we've seen that with Netscape at the beginning of the internet, and then was Internet Explorer, and then Firefox, and then Chrome. But there's always one platform that tends to dominate until it becomes too powerful in the eyes of users and they get scared. So I can't see why blockchain will have a different behavior.
Okay, good. So let's talk a bit about regulations. Tom, I'm going to start off with you. Basically, I mean, everyone knows that, I mean, it's just been repeated, and we all see it because we live in Singapore, but Singapore obviously has taken a wise stance. The regulators, MAS, from the meetings we have had, they are not releasing any regulations until February of 2019 with respect to crypto exchanges and currencies. My question to you, again, going back to a previous question, is let's say they have a completely liberal, progressive regulation around the growth of cryptos, the growth of allowing fiat conversion to cryptos for banks, and minimal barriers. How would the US regulations or regulators try and influence Singapore? Because obviously there's a lot of outflow from the US to Singapore in terms of, we see a lot of companies come in.
Yeah, I mean, being an American living in Singapore, some people think Singapore is the 51st state. So Singapore doesn't think that, the Americans do. There is a lot of influence. Interestingly, I mean, just a few weeks ago, MAS in Singapore signed an MOU agreement with the CFTC in Washington, specifically on fintech and digital products. Again, an MOU agreement like that, I know that they did one with India. It took them 9 years to negotiate it. It took them 3 weeks to negotiate the new one with the CFTC. So this thing is on steroids in terms of how quickly people want to grab a hold of it.
What do you think? What do you think is the basis for the? Because there was nothing on the news, really.
Oh, I know. It was very quiet. People don't realize the implication of that. It's a huge implication. It's usually dull and dry, and it's in the back page of the newspaper. It's got big implications. Two reasons. One, there's a territorial fight over who's going to regulate digital assets, whether it's a coin or a crypto or an asset-backed token. And that fight is in the U.S. between SEC, CFTC. CFTC seems to have won that at a court settlement, which is a prosecution on a fraud, and the court decided in that the CFTC has right of jurisdiction. So now you're going to find the CFTC is basically going to look at cryptos and tokens and currencies and everything as commodities and derivatives. So that defines the taxation and the regulation for the United States. MAS and Singapore have a very similar structure when it comes to taxation and regulation on derivatives. It's a flat tax of 10%, no capital gains, and MAS has oversight. I think that's the kind of stuff that you're going to see play out very quickly between the U.S. and in a positive light, not in a negative light. Truthfully, what this really gets down to is their fear of retail investors getting run over, which they have historically been. Who ran them over? The traditional broker-dealers that we all know and love, whether Merrill Lynch or J.P. Morgan or local brokers. And it's just bad sales tactics more than anything else. It's not fraud. But brokers don't exist in crypto land.
Exactly.
So it's a regulation that's almost irrelevant. But it's a fear of historically the nature of retail clients getting run over and taxation.
Okay.
This is
Those
a taxable
two.
asset, and they want to make sure they nail it down.
Let me take off where you left and ask Marcelo the question on, you just made a statement saying brokers don't exist in the crypto world, which I agree completely.
Yet.
Yeah, let's just talk about, Marcelo, again, I'm going to give you visions to talk about, and then you translate that into technical elements. The vision is that we don't need brokers. We can access markets directly through decentralized exchanges. At the end of the day, everyone, me, you, Tom, everyone in the audience, can trade on their own, directly to the market, can create their own portfolios, can create their own asset management strategies, right? So would we live in a world where technology will allow us to access markets directly and not be influenced by banks, brokers, middlemen? The markets will exist, and so will the end user, and the banks in the middle and the brokers will fade away. Would you like to think that's a realistic vision?
I'm undecided. I think that implies a shift that goes way beyond technology, implies a change in human behavior and psyche, like the way we see and get excited about blockchain doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. Many people like to know that they can pick up the phone and talk to someone, and they're happy to pay a fee or know that they're not getting the best execution price, but they know they have a reassurance that they have a relationship manager or they have a broker they can call and complain if there's a problem. So I'm not fully convinced that that's the way the world is going to work. However, blockchain opens and widens up the access to markets. So in an ideal world where every asset is tokenized and is available through a decentralized exchange, and anyone can create an account in this blockchain ecosystem and use crypto linked to fiat or just native crypto to purchase assets, that's going to be very enticing to many people. And in particular, I think it's relevant in this region, in ASEAN, where we have the largest percentage of people who are unbanked, are unable to have basic services like a payment card, let alone think about building a portfolio. So I think it's going to be the most relevant in this part of the world, and because the population here, they don't have that legacy of thinking, who do I call if there's an issue? They are used to relying on themselves. I think that's where we're going to see the largest push and largest adoption. And we're already seeing that with cryptocurrencies.
Okay, okay. I'm probably going to open it up to the audience, but just my last question, I'm going to go beyond just financial markets here, and I want to go to a society where meritocracy supersedes your political alliances, you know, all the corporate politics that you play in the office to move ahead and get a promotion. Certainly from the banking world, that's what we did. But do you think that blockchain will lead to meritocracy? Do you think that, you know, we will have these decentralized platforms everywhere in the world? Let's just give you an example. You are a 12-year-old child in Ghana, in some farm, and you upload a video of yourself singing beautifully for 3 minutes, and someone else in San Francisco picks that up and decides to give them some sort of recording contract. Do you think that sort of meritocracy will come so that we don't have to go through music studios, we don't have to play any sort of allegiances or be connected in the world?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's already happening. So anyone can go on YouTube and try to promote themselves and become like a small celebrity. So the internet has already removed the barriers for a lot of people to communicate and create content. The problem is that monetizing that content is not easy, right? Because that child in Ghana doesn't have a way of getting paid if they don't have a bank account, and that's where blockchain comes in. So I think blockchain would completely empower people who are actively now connected to the rest of the world through blockchain, but they don't have a financial leg on it. If we add the financial leg, then they no longer need banks, they no longer need promoters, producers, they can be fully independent.
Interesting. So blockchain is that missing leg whereby you can connect talent with intrinsic value. Now, I'm just going to open it up to the audience if anyone has any questions. No, if not, I'll have one final question to both of you, and then we'll stop for lunch. So there are some of the policymakers in Australia and even in the US have mentioned that mining causes a lot of damage for the environment, right? This is not sustainable, the electricity, and so on and so forth. I alluded to Gulam earlier on, whereby they're creating a platform where they can make use of your spare capacity in your mobile or in your laptop and plug into that in order to use that as a processing machine. Do you think this is the future of sort of virtualized machines, distributed machines? What do you guys think?
I think when it comes to processing, efficiency comes from industrialization. So mobile devices are not industrial machines. They are convenient machines that provide a good user experience. I think it's a nice concept to try to take away some of the concentration of power that companies like Amazon have. Bell is up. So my answer is I believe that may be a valuable model if the algorithm that's protecting the blockchain and sort of facilitating the verification of the transactions that not rely on maximizing the computing power. If you look at the Bitcoin blockchain today, it runs on proof of work, and it requires significant computing resources, which leads to huge electricity consumption. So the proof of work model would not be relevant to devices, but other consensus algorithms like proof of stake, or I heard from them, they're pushing for proof of importance. So other consensus protocols may benefit significantly from using devices.
Okay, Tom, last one very quick answer. Crypto as an asset class, when will we see it? What year?
Crypto as an asset class? Next year. I think 2019. And I'm serious.
Really?
It's going to be a breakout year. I think the noise and the rhetoric, all the stuff, all the loud stuff that we heard at Davos earlier this year, and we've got all the IMF folks out here, zero about how bad Bitcoin is, which tells me it's full adoption, and now that they've cleared a lot of the hurdles, I think it's full speed ahead.
Okay.
I fully agree.
40 years?
Fully agree.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Tom and Marcella.
Another great discussion, everyone. But I would love to let you know that we are going to take lunch break right now. We will be back here in an hour. So we will be back here by 2:30 p.m. with more great panels. Enjoy your lunch.